First of all, I want to say Tashitelik, and this is a video for this first session of the online gathering, and I will explain to you everything in detail, and there will be a translation along with it. So, in this very moment, you don't need to be in this meditative posture. You can just sit back, relax, make sure that your mind and your intention is pure. That is the most important. When it's time to receive empowerment, instruction about how to meditate and so on and so forth, yes, definitely. But when you receive a teaching, it is good to be in the meditative state, at least a posture. But if that is not possible, it is still fine. But most important is a pure intention, and that pure intention has to be that since that I received these teachings of the Lord Buddha and Bodhisattvas, and I will benefit all the sentient beings by learning the Dharma, by practicing the Dharma, and by genuinely sharing the Dharma to all the sentient beings. Having that pure intention is the most important in this session and also for the next episodes as well. So, I will start with the Refuge Mandala and visualizing your own Guru and my own Gurus. So that's that at the moment. Go Sanje Jodan Zoge Chonam La Janjun Bandun Dani Jasun Chen Dage Jensun Gebe Sunum Ge Rola Penche Sanje Dobrasho Sanje Jodan Zoge Chonam La Janjun Bandun Dani Jasun Chen Dage Jensun Gebe Sunum Ge Rola Penche Sanje Dobrasho Sanje Jodan Zoge Chonam La Janjun Bandun Dani Jasun Chen Dage Jensun Gebe Sunum Ge Rola Penche Sanje Dobrasho Sanje Jodan Zoge Chonam La Janjun Bandun Dani Jasun Chen Dage Jensun Gebe Sunum Ge Drola Benje Sanjin Drobara Show, Semje Namjin Dewa Nande, Judan Debra Jujin, Dongan, Dongan, Judan, Trawan Juju, Dongan, Maybe Dewa, Tamba, and Drawan Juji. Yere Jada, Nidan, Dreve, Danium Chimbola, Never in George, Semje Namjin Dewa, Nande, Judan, Debra Jujin, Dongan, Dongan, Judan, Drawan Juji, Dongan, Maybe Dewa, Tamba, and Drawan Juji. Nyere Jada, Nidan, Dreve, Danium Chimbola, Never in George, Semje Namjin Dewa, Nande, Judan, Debra Juji, Dongan, Dongan, Judan, Drawan Juji, Dongan, Maybe Dewa, Tamba, and Drawan Juji, Nyere Jada, Nidan, Dreve. Danyum Jembola never George Chanza Wadan Jujin Jabat Jesu Yiran Bujin so I Gawa Jonse Dage Jezaba Tamje Dage Chanju Jembo Saji Beji Jonshi Medo Tamara Linje Yen Jembande Sanji Shindu Midimbo I Drogan Namda Shin Lan Jubara Show Balenza Lama Rinpoche Dage Joro Payment Denshula Garden Jembe Gone Jesun de Kuzun Toge Wondun Zandu so. So you visualize your own Guru. I visualize my Guru, Jamgön Kongtrul Rinpoche, as my Guru, as he has been my Guru for many lifetimes after lifetimes. So that as my witness, as my refuge, and then I will start this session. As I always do that every time. So you visualize your own Guru, whoever you consider as a Guru. And if you don't have a Guru, then you just visualize a Buddha with a pure intention. That's the most important. Okay, so the topic is the creation and completion. The reason I choose this is it's a universal teaching. It's nothing to do with his or her tradition and lineage and order and so on and so forth. It is, how do I say, it's basically a Dharma teaching that belongs and should study and read by many practitioners and that means you. And I think that is very important to understand it that way, because nowadays even we have so much information, we still goes into like a sectarian world, my tradition, his lineage, her lineage, and then the bigger one try to minimize the smaller one try to compete with them, other different lineages and traditions and so on and so forth. So therefore, that is their responsibility. Your responsibility and my responsibility is to keep the pure intention to the Dharma and receiving the teachings of the Lord Buddha, and with that pure intention in mind and wanting to benefit all the sentient beings, that is the most important. Okay, so the reason I choose this text is because you can read 20 times, and each time you read, the way you reflect towards your mind can be more profound over time as you continue to do your practice. The practice definition can be visualization of the deity, it can be a calm meditation, shamatha and vipassana, it can be your daily routine of whatever the other practice you may be doing. And whenever you come back to this one, even you read 20 times, 30 times, each time you read, there will be profound reflection towards yourself. And that is my personal understanding, and that can be your personal understanding over time. So here the title is like this: Lamshu ki kansa le tangpo pala pembe kezo ki nedu shu so. So Lamshu kansa le tangpo pala. Lamshu means the path. Lam means path. Shu means entering towards the path. Kansa le tangpo pala. Kansa means like individual, like yourself or myself. Tangpo pala pembe. Pembe means that can heal and benefit, to shed the light towards the confusion, So, pembe, kezo, ke means creation. Like an example, when you are visualizing a deity, when you are making a prostration, when you're taking a refuge, all these and all, whether you're chanting a mantra, whether you're reading a sutra, whether you're going around the stupas, all these are seen as a creation. It's not simply a creating or projecting a deity. It's seen as the duality practice. Our mind is projecting into an external layer, and then when we visualize the different objects and so on and so forth. Dzog means completion. Completion means basically all the visualization transforming into a more subtle level, so that you create the circumstance to recognize the nature of the mind. Zogi, nedu shusu. The nedu means the essence of all the guidelines are presented here. Shuso means are presented here. Lamshu kanzale tangu pala pembe kezo nedu shuso. So 다른 용수주의 상명이 대동 텐생 고죠 존들 넘버로 저게 도지다 예매 빼면 이제 원보도. So the first Jamgön Kongtrul the reason I am saying this is because it's a little bit like a preface, when you read a book. So in the traditional text there's always a bowing down to the guru, So the first Jamgön Kongtrul his main guru was, Siddhabema Nyingje. And then the previous Kalu Rinpoche's guru is Siddhabema Wancho. And my guru is Jamgön Kongtrul, our present Siddhabema Rinpoche. So that is like generation to generation. So it also has some kind of a special meaning to me, because, a same guru over the lifetimes after lifetimes. Anyway, that's just my personal explanation to you. Yerme pema ninje wampo du nyingme rangdang wamba shaweka nyingme rangdang wamba shaweka tamil mumba tada subject shebe chija rani ngawechu wenjang doji chebe kananta. So he's saying that nyingme rangdang wamba shaweka nyingme rangdang wamba shaweka, it means in this degenerate time, or you don't have to say degenerate time. You can say in a difficult time, that's it, in a state of the generation or the century of confusion. Like an example, in European we say the Dark Ages, right? So it's more seen like that. It's not necessarily the life becomes shorter and more miserable. It's more to do with understanding in a confusion time, in a time of confusion, in a time of confusion, in a time of darkness, myself, having this great teachings of the Dharma, individual like myself, I have no capacity to share or to preach or to guide anybody. That is my capacity. That's what he said. With the profound meaning of explanation and benefiting all the sentient beings, I do not see myself fit in that responsibilities. Even I pretend to be one, and then it is simply exhausting, activities. But due to the instruction of my Guru that I cannot abandon the instruction, it is not by force, but rather with a sense of rejoice, with a sense of appreciation. So you have to understand the right mindset. Many of us, when we think about nowadays the Guru-student relationship, many of us, we think that whatever the Guru tells us, we have to do it. That is absolutely not true. Guru will never force you to do anything. Guru will always give you teachings, whether with their behavior, whether with their teachings, or indirectly, they will always be the reflection to you. But the most important is you catching that opportunity, not losing from your grip, and then practicing it, fulfilling it, and keeping the commitment, and so on and so forth. It has to be more, should be coming from more from your side. Like an example, I will tell you one story. Milarepa was so desperate from his own wrongdoing that he wanted to liberate from the sea of samsara so desperately. And then he found the Marpa Lotsawa, the great translator, the one who traveled back and forth between Tibet and in India. And then when he was there asking for Dharma teaching again and again, he was continuously denied many times. But under one condition, Marpa said that if you build something for me, then eventually I will give you something in return. And then slowly that eventually happened. So if you understand the biography, there was never such forced by the Guru to the student. It's more like a general agreement between each other, or mutual understanding. So myself, with the ignorant person like myself, sharing the Dharma to others, I find that very useless. But only based on the blessings of my Guru, only by believing in that, and then I will not hide anything, I will not hold back anything, I will not keep any secret of anything. I will simply, whatever comes into my mind, I will simply write it down. Then, if you are an angry person, you have everything that comes into your mind is an anger issue, right? To the realized being, anything that comes into their mind is a great teachings and a great reflection to themselves about the nature of the mind and about the relative truth and about the illusion, right? So that's what it meant, okay? In order to translate correctly to you and understand that perspective. So now you understand the two things, right? The key point is, the student and the Guru relation, the connection is never based on obligation, is never based on force, but rather having a sense of gratitude and sense of respect to each other with a sense of dignity and combined together. And then there's that good balance, right? There's never forced. And then the other one is that, when you have a sense of genuine quality, then the genuine teachings come by itself. If you pretend to be genuine, then you will mislead yourself and you will mislead others, right? So there's a 2 point to keep in your mind. And then the next sentence is this one. Tamekyo malu chedanja sangjengwen lama jesusu chege yangning kangsap tawatang lame tune So here is a few sentences that I like to repeat again. So it's saying this, Tanjore Rinche, we call it Kalu Rinpoche, the precious human life. The human life is not really precious. It's more to do with the circumstances. Like an example, there's billions of people in this world who are going through enormous suffering all the time. Whether they think that they are powerful, whether they think they are rich, whether they think they are poor, whether they are thinking they are trying to survive, many sentient beings are constantly suffering. Out of billions of people who hear about the Buddha is very less. People who knows about Buddhism, 84,000 teachings of the Lord Buddha is even less. People who have some interaction with the Dharma is even less. People who has the opportunity to receive the teachings is even less. People finding a genuine instructor is even less. So due to these kind of comparison, we have to consider ourselves fortunate in this very moment. Ultimately, all the sentient beings are bound to be enlightened at the end. That is many times after. But at the moment, you are a fortunate being. I am a fortunate being. That does not justify your pride either. Sense of gratitude, to your past life is very important. In my past life, I may have accumulated some positivities, and due to this result, I have this precious human life, and not just have human life, but also meeting with the Dharma. If you look at the sentient beings, the number of sentient beings, not just in this, a universe, but look into our planet. There's so many insects, that is constantly dying based on the season and environmental change, and there's a constant insect that are evolving and that are there, and that their lifespan is short, and some of them lifespan is long, but either way, there are countless sentient beings. Out of that is 7 billion, and soon it's going to be 8 billion over a few years later, maybe in the future, But at the moment, we are the very minority one. So therefore, having a sense of appreciation towards our past life and having a gratitude, I must have done a positive accumulation in the past, that is good, but in order to bring a genuine result, for that is to maintain and to connect with the Dharma. And to connect with the Dharma, you need to understand the reality of the suffering and the reality of happiness. If you have no understanding of the reality of happiness, you will not have the reality of understanding of what is suffering. So understanding the definition of the suffering is very important. In this modern world, people literally hurting you, that will be possible, but not much as in olden times. Because our lifespan as a human being is much more longer than a few hundred years before. So therefore, our physical challenge with other human beings and obstacles is far less than a few hundred years ago. So therefore, we are already very fortunate also by that. But understanding the reality of the suffering is not simply when you are happy you don't have to think about it, when you are not happy you have to think about it. It doesn't mean that. The reality of the suffering, it does not mean that your life is miserable, that it's hopeless, everything is unhappiness, everything is miserable, it's nothing, there's no point, and being in a completely state of despair is not the reality of understanding of the suffering. The understanding of the suffering has to come down to examining your emotion. If you cannot examine the source of suffering, the cause of the suffering, and how does the emotion and the projection of thoughts and all this applies, and how it multiplies, and how it influences our character, our perception, our judgment, our belief, and our fixation. If you do not examine these things, temporary examination of suffering, everybody can achieve that. You know, like an example, we all say, I don't want to get sick, I want to go to the doctor, I want to take medicine. That level of examination of the reality of suffering is not enough. It's good in that level that you take care of yourself. It's good. But it is still not enough to have a deeper understanding. You know. So, in order to understand the true meaning of happiness is also very important. Many people write many books about happiness and how to be happy and how to live happy and so on and so forth. But it always comes down to minimizing the activities, minimizing the attractions, minimizing the materialism. You know, so the true meaning of happiness comes down to simply being in the state of knowing and sense of emptiness and clarity and transparency in this very moment without any dependency, you know. So being in that is a true happiness. If your happiness has to be based on the external material object or based on other different objects, you know, or in a different sensorial level, then it is bound to change. If it's bound to change, then it's bound to suffer, just as we hope to be happy from this unhappiness to happiness, isn't it? So therefore, understanding the true meaning of happiness is very important instead of fixation towards the happiness. Idea of happiness is being sold to you many, many times throughout the centuries, you know. So it's time for you to understand the true meaning of happiness, and the true meaning of happiness should not come from any sort of external dependency. If there's a dependent, then it's not a happiness. It's bound to change. If it's bound to change, it's bound to suffer. And if it's suffering, then there's a cycle of illusion. If there's a cycle of illusion, then there's a sense of hopelessness and isolation and depression and so on and on. Okay. So we are very fortunate to meet with Dharma. So this is a very important sentence. In many of us, when we go to, you know, a Buddhist world, a Buddhist institution, we always faced with saying that you want to be a Buddhist practitioner, you have to see your guru as a Buddha. Well, I have an objection against that, because nobody should be forced to see someone as a Buddha. Even the Buddha himself does not force other people to say or to believe to see him as a Buddha, because he is one. He doesn't remind them that people have to see him as a Buddha. He simply shows his genuine quality, and based on the genuine quality of the enlightened being, the student follows just like that. You know, so I think it is very important. You know, again, I want to go back to the Milarepa story. For many, many, many years, you know, Milarepa, he worked very hard. He did not receive one single word of teaching. And he endured so much physical hardship because he built many 9-floor house and other houses, you know, all by himself. And then after many years, when he was about, you know, he was already getting old, and there was a lack of physical strength as well. And then over time, slowly, after many years, and then when it was his time to receive the empowerment, you know, and then he received the empowerment of Hevajra from the Marpalotawa, and then in that very moment, he see the Marpalotawa as a Hevajra itself. Almost there is no separation between which one is Marpalotawa, which one is Hevajra, but rather the whole mandala of the Hevajra, you know, with the concert and objects and the radiance and everything, you know. And then what I'm trying to say is that when you have a certain level of realization, you will see your guru, your mentor, your instructor as a Buddha over time. If you're forced to believe that is a Buddha, then that benefit or that improvement, that understanding will not come. Okay, so that's the one thing to keep in mind. Sangjingon lama jesu chöge yani kanza tawatan lame tun suzan dombecho rawa yede chödem kemalu zombe tu de shende mandrukjan rango tenzem nyamne majena namchi chame chise chemato ji jambe be kollo judegi banjo yeja yumi shildulu namshe kanna lege jesu ra. So here comes a very few key sentences. He is saying here that Rangwa Yudu Chudem Kemalu, Zombe to the Shende Madrupja, Rango turns on Yamne Machina. So in this very moment, you have this opportunity in your hand, to practice Dharma. So I think it is very important for you to realize in this very moment that I am fortunate and I shall practice. I will utilize this time and this opportunity to practice Dharma within my own capacity. That sense of acceptance. It doesn't have to be big acceptance, it's just small acceptance, to start with. So basically it's saying that, every life that is on earth, once there's a birth and then there's a death. And we believe like that. And of course, we have to believe like that in the beginning. Of course, otherwise we will not even practice it. But eventually we need to have an understanding that death is not the end. It's a continuity, it's a transaction. But in order to make a proper transaction, you need to have a positive karma, in your hand. And many people, when they think about positive karma or negative karma, they think about white color bowls of negative black colored bowls, and they have this kind of imagination, like what we see in this kind of a traditional painting. Positive and the negative accumulation of karma is more to do with your accumulation of habit. Like an example, when you have an anger issue, when you have a jealousy issue, when you have uncertainties throughout the day, and then that's what you dream. And your dream becomes your reality in that very moment when you are dreaming. So it's very important to understand that the karma in general, we should not, gossip with our karma and, with so much chaotic imagination, but rather we have to understand the karma in this very moment as a positive habit and negative habit. So if there is a positive habit that we can accumulate over time, and then sense of detachment over time, to the fixation of the false idea of self, and then in the time of death also there will be less fixation. The less fixation there is, the less illusion there is. The less illusion there is, the more liberation there is. So that is a clear understanding that we need to have, and that it applies to ourselves as a practitioner in general. So that's that. Namchi chame chisu chuma tijame ben kolo jujege banjo yeje magishidulu namje kanna lege jesu ta tijate me goje me be tata ni chishu me baro gosum gevele le bebrasa. So therefore understanding our reality, circumstances, so based on that clear understanding, and then we must dedicate our body, speech and mind to the Dharma. So so that's the first chapter. So now I'm moving to the second chapter, which is a very favorite one. So if you don't remember everything about this creation completion text, and if you think this is too long and too boring, too serious, and this is not for me, or if you have that kind of imagination, fine. I'm not your caregiver, but at least if you remember the next chapter, which is only a few lines that you can keep in your mind, it will be helpful throughout your lifetime, because it's an original teaching. It's not my opinion, it's not her opinion, it's not his opinion. It's a genuine teaching from the realized master, that master itself being recognized by many other practitioners, So that is something we have to keep in mind. So in order to initiate yourself, to start, right? In order to initiate yourself, is the renunciation. So I think I have to explain this to you, because many of us, when we think about renunciation, we have this kind of imagination that we have to abandon everything without any sense of clear understanding. And many people, they almost become irresponsible, and they cannot make a distinction what is responsible and what is irresponsible, and they more or less, they see themselves being irresponsible, and then they have regret, and then they go backward instead of going forward. Whether you are a monk, or whether you are a nun, or whether you are a lay practitioner, whether you are just an ordinary practitioner, whatever you call yourself. So therefore, the meaning of the renunciation has to be developed over time. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon everything. Understanding the reality of the suffering, the cause of suffering, again and again, again and again, and making the changes by little is the true meaning of renunciation. Many of us, we are so desperate for recognition. We want to make a big change in our life. The big thing, change the clothes, change the lifestyle, make it into something great with excitement. Be careful. Excitement is not renunciation. It's simply an emotion that is in a state of excitement. That is not a renunciation. That is not a clarity. Like an example, when you have a clear renunciation over time, then you can be like a Buddha Shakyamuni, where you can shave off your hair and make a distinction between the lay person and the practitioner himself. So therefore, renunciation should not be done with excitement, should not be done once in a while and abandon everything. Renunciation is a way of thinking, it's a philosophy to protect yourself, to be humble, to be clear, to be aware. That is the meaning of renunciation. Changing name, changing clothes, way of living, lifestyle, irresponsible is not renunciation. Renunciation means understanding the true cause of suffering and having the clear understanding of the relative truth, and then making renouncing little by little over time, and then at the end you can make the ceremonial renunciation when you have a full realization. So the renunciation has to be there throughout our journey. It's not something that you think about it in the beginning and abandon over time. Because the moment you abandon the renunciation, it's the same as you're losing your awareness. We need a sense of awareness all the time. The moment you lose the awareness in your mind, in your life, as a practitioner, then that is the same as losing the Dharma. That is same as losing the path. So the very definition of so-called being a practitioner comes down to having a clarity, to having a clear understanding the true meaning of renunciation. Nyamlen mangdo ngejung konai. Nyamlen jugo teba konai. Nyamlen jugo teba konai. Nyamlen jugo teba konai, it means in order to initiate yourself, in order to enter yourself to the gate, is having a respect. Respecting true three jewels is not a devotion. Showing respect. Having a respect to the Dharma as a text. Telling other people to be respectful. It is our duty. It is our responsibility. Like an example, if you see your grandparents or grandchildren's picture, jumping over by other people, throwing into the fire by other people, being disrespected by other people, you will definitely go there without a single thought. So therefore, that is our basic human common understanding, the human values. And when it comes to Dharma, it's even more. It's a method for the liberation of ourselves from the state of samsara. So therefore, having a genuine respect to the Dharma is very important. When you are reading text, always place it higher, always clean hand, never touch your mouth and your text at the same time, never read the text while you're eating, while you're gossiping. Read the text with the purest intention, and even you read a few lines, just be content with that and place it into a respectful place, not just some kind of a some kind of a science fiction book, that where you put all over the place, but rather you keep it to your shrine. And if you don't have a shrine, at least put it cleanly in the library location where you place. So I think it's very important. Unless if you have a digital, then you don't have to worry about it, right? So having a sense of respect, is necessary. The grand path of being a practitioner is compassion. The grand path, to the path of Dharma is compassion. So I think that is very important to understand. We have to be compassionate to sentient beings. We have to practice compassion, but we don't have to generate compassion to the sentient beings right away in action. Okay? These three things are very different. Slightly different in the beginning, especially when you are a practitioner. Like an example, if you truly say that you are a compassionate being, you are saying, in this meaning, you are saying that you are a realization individual, that who have realized there is no self, but simply the nature of mind. But still we haven't reached there yet, right? So therefore we should not say, I am a compassionate person. You cannot say, I want to be compassionate. You cannot be compassionate because that is a realization state of mind. You cannot be enlightened. You cannot be happy, right? So therefore having that kind of distinction is very important. So therefore ourselves as a practitioner, we have to visualize the Tonglen practice, right? The practicing compassion, Tonglen practice again and again, visualizing the Avalokiteshvara again and again, and spreading the radiance again and again, then thinking of all the sentient being as the relatives of your present, past, future, and then keeping that into your mind. And then slowly, as you accumulate this positive quality, and then naturally it will become your attitude over time. Naturally it will become your way of thinking, way of doing, way of dealing, way of overcoming, So when you have a compassionate state as a realized being, you are beyond illusion. You are beyond fixation. You are beyond suffering. And that's how you can, in that moment, you can say, I am a compassionate being. But unfortunately, in that moment, you will no longer say, I am a compassionate being, because you have realized that is a false fixation of the false belief of self, right? So that's that. Nyamlen shunam ingje konai, nyamlen sokshin tsechik drupsoi, nyamlen sokshin tsechik drupsoi, nyamlen sokshin. The very essence of life as a practitioner is having a strong root. Okay? So what is the meaning of having a strong root? The strong root means having a less activities. Is a strong root. Having many activities and being chaotic is not a strong root. When you are chanting, simply chanting. When you are practicing, simply practicing. And having a sense of needless attitude, having a sense of content, sense of rejoice, sense of peacefulness, and that is called a strong root as a practitioner, and that is very important. Like we say, like I've been saying this all the time, the traveler runs out of shoes, the practitioner doesn't loses the temperature of the cushion, because you abandon all the worldly activities and you are always in the needless state of mind as a practitioner and always having a sense of awareness. Talking about awareness, now it comes the next sentence. Many of us, when we talk about Dharma practice, we think of as carrying a text with us all the time and being inseparable with the pictures and the tags and the statues. That is true in that way. But the true meaning of inseparable of the Dharma practice comes down to having a sense of awareness. So what is awareness? The awareness is simply being in a state of knowing. If you have extreme ideas of awareness, such as like playing a sport, like playing a football, like where you have to kick and defend and protect, and then and strategize. If you have to strategize, that is not awareness. If the strategy mind can be awareness, then all the business people can be awareness all the time. They can be the great meditator eventually, isn't it? So the great strategist and the great, a strong concentration is not awareness. Okay, so that is one. The other one, the other extreme one, is when we recognize our projection of thoughts, then we gossip with our projection of thoughts, and then we tell ourselves, I have recognized the projection of thoughts, I did it, this time I overcome, this time I overcome, and non-stop gossiping with our projection of thoughts. That is also not awareness. So the meaning of awareness is simply being in a state of knowing. Knowing is a state of clarity. Clarity is also the state of emptiness. Right? So if you're visualizing a deity, so and then the third one is that there's a difference between the visualization and then imagination. Imagination does not have a structure. You're imagining and you're projecting and you're creating. In visualization, you are visualizing from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, whichever the figure may be, whatever the object may be. Your mind is always constantly in the state of knowing everything at the same time, but no gossip, no extreme concentration, but simply being in a state of knowing of that visualization of the deity or the object or the syllable or the mantra. That is the true meaning of awareness. And the other false is being paranoia. Paranoia is not awareness either. Okay, so that's the conclusion of that topic. So that is the definition of being inseparable of the Dharma practice. In order to overcome our obstacles, we must have a faith in the three jewels. We must have a trust in three jewels. And I think there's nothing more to speak about that, because if you have a sense of awareness, if you have a true meaning of renunciation to yourself and sense of honesty, there is definitely a sense of faith and sense of trust to the three jewels. So let's keep that very simple, and it is simple. Nyamle porte lamar mukui, nyamle porte lamar mukui, nyamle trume lame damngai, nyamle porte lamar mukui. So nyamle porte lamar mukui. These two are similar sentences. In order to overcome our obstacles and confusion, the method is to have a pure devotion. And the true meaning of the pure devotion is having a sense of no expectation in return, but simply seeing that individual as a great being and pure appreciation with the rejoice and sense of humbleness and sense of genuine gratitude. All simultaneously together is a devotion. Devotion is not about crying and being emotionally unstable. So devotion is having a sense of clarity, and every single sentence teachings that is coming from the Master or coming from the Lord Buddha's teaching, and then profoundly listening to everything in detail, and being in a state of awareness at all times, and then fully dedicating and with a deep gratitude and making a prayer combined together is devotion. Chanting only is not devotion. In order to overcome our illusion or the obstacles in the path of Dharma is to find or to receive a key method from the instructor or from the master or from the guru. And there is this one I have a true explanation. One is that if you happen to have a good instructor with you or close to you, then of course you can have some kind of a conversation where that master can give a technical advice from his own personal experience or her experience, right? But other Dhamma means a special teaching. Dhamma can be found not just in the teachings of the masters, but also can be found when you are reading the text. You read the text, 10 times, 20 times, and then there's a few sentences where you deeply reflect into your mind, and then it brings a sense of pure joy and sense of pure content, and it brings the tears in your eye, not literally crying, but 1 or 2 drop of tears, and simply content and simply joyful. And then in your mind, nothing but clear mind, oh, this is true, I have not seen this before, but now I have seen this one, deeply grateful and deep gratitude, this is pure good, and then, that is the impact of the Dhamma, the special teaching, I call it. Nyamne ne tasum jigdowa shedang truweking kurmalupa. It is very important to see the deity and the Buddha and Bodhisattvas and the protector equally inseparable, because all the teachings of the deities and the Bodhisattvas and all the protectors, all linked with the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha. So therefore we should see that equally as possible and inseparably as possible, not something like, oh, protector is less, deity is higher, guru is somewhere else, not like that kind of perception. So that's something very important to keep in mind. Whether it's a deity, whether it's a wrathful, whether it's peaceful appearance, always seeing as a gift of the guru, and the blessings of the guru is important. And finally recognizing the nature of the mind based on the visualization of the deity practice. So that's it for this time. First and the second chapter and the preface. So I will make a dedication and I will say a few words at the end. Sunamde tamje zibanye tomne nyebe dana pamjene giga na jembalan trowe siben solan rowan rowan jo changju senjo Rinpoche mage panan ke jeje keba nyamba mebat kone konde power jo lama gombo yemela dane ke bejo jidana semje tamje ke nymo male zo gombo lama yemela dane ke bejo jidana semje tamje parche male sa war jo. Okay, so we will see each other in this upcoming month in the online gathering, and looking forward to seeing you all very soon, and wishing you all the best, and many tashi delek. Bye bye.